We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita, and this is Medical Monday, which means it's time to give you all of the hot health topics in the headlines. So let me tell you, we have a jam-packed room today. We're going to start off with me giving you your weekly dose. That's when I give you all of the medicine that people are talking about. We are first going to talk about meat, because guess what? There's been another recall. We have some meat that's been contaminated with listeria. And if you are someone who enjoys your deli meat, you don't want to miss that because you might be eating the meat that's been recalled. I hope not, but stay tuned. I'll give you the details. And then we are going to talk about myth versus fact. We're going to start off by talking about the opioid withdrawal syndrome. Yes, folks who are doing OxyContin, Percocet, fentanyl withdrawal. Myth versus fact. Can opioid withdrawal be life-threatening? I'll address it. And then another myth versus fact. Someone posted that her 64-year-old mother is pregnant. Can that happen? Can a 64-year-old woman be pregnant? You might be surprised. We'll talk about that. And then we'll get into our main topics on this Medical Monday. Let's start off talking about Hurricane Helene, because she has gone, but she has left a whole lot of mess in the background, including dialysis. You know, I'm a board certified kidney doctor. I'm a dialysis doctor. And guess what? Hurricane Helene has caused a dialysis crisis. Yes, I'll tell you all about that. And then we will talk about Liam Payne. Liam Payne, who's a former member of the group One Direction. Well, he has lost his life at the age of 31 after falling from the third floor balcony of his Buenos Aires, Argentina hotel room. Well, we have more facts about that, the cause of his death, and what was in his system when he passed away. We'll definitely get into that, because we know substance abuse and polypharmacy has become a real thing, and that's definitely life-threatening. Lastly, we know that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and so we are going to be aware. We're going to talk about Ananda Lewis and her breast cancer journey, and then we'll talk about a Boy Meets World star who also has had a breast cancer journey. Lastly, we'll squeeze in some time for a live Q&A, so go ahead, write your questions down, put them in the chat, and I'll answer your questions right here, live and on stage. I'm Dr. Frita, and let's get ready for Medical Monday. Like this video as you come on in the room. Hello, hello. I'm Dr. Frita. Go ahead, give us a like. Go ahead and share this video. That's right. Like, hit the thumbs up, find the link, share it with folks, because I'm giving you some evidence-based evidence-based medicine. I am an MD. I'm a medical doctor who has been multi-board certified in nephrology. So I'm a kidney doctor, in internal medicine, and pediatrics, and obesity medicine. And so I like to talk a lot about a lot, and I love to share my information. So go ahead, come on in, and we're going to have us a good time. Go ahead and be active in the chat, and let's get started. Well, you know I'm not doing it alone. So let's welcome my co-host and my practice manager of over a decade, Ms. Shador. Come on up, Shador.
Hey, Dr. Frita.
Hey, Ms. Shador, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm all over the place, but I'm doing well. I had a very busy week and weekend. I voted early. You know, we're here in Georgia. We had all the excitement. So listen, please, everyone, get out and vote. Understand that your voice matters. Let me tell you how much it matters to me and in our household. I flew my daughter from her school, from her university in Florida, just to make sure she voted. Now, yes, had you been organized, you could have gotten an absentee ballot for your child, or your child could have registered in the new state, you know, if they're in a different state, but we didn't. She was still registered in Georgia. And so I had her come all the way home to vote. That's just how important your voice is. All right. So that was the big thing of our weekend. And then, of course, we had sports and all the other things. I hope you had a good weekend, Shador.
I did have a good weekend. One of my cousins turned 1, so of course I took my child to the birthday party, costume party. Her first boo day, I think they call it, not birthday, but boo day. So yeah.
Oh, how cute. That is fun. Oh, these kids are just growing and growing, and it doesn't stop. You know what else doesn't stop, Shador? the medical news. The medical news, we are loaded down. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to give you your weekly dose. Yes, I'm going to give you your weekly dose. So how many of you, put a 1 in the chat if you're someone who enjoys deli meat or the occasional beef or maybe some turkey, some pastrami. Put a 1 in the chat if you sometimes do enjoy yourself some deli meat. And let's go ahead and roll this first clip because there has been a recall from contaminated meat.
Of products sold at trade shows and
Shador, I don't see the clip.
Amazon, Wegmans, Kroger, 7-Eleven, and other stores have been
You
recalled.
don't see it. Oh, it was definitely playing. Could you hear it?
Yeah, well, it started up playing. I'm sorry. You go ahead. Okay. This was delayed.
Okay, my apologies. Let me find Dr. Frita. Okay, here we go.
Be contaminated with Listeria bacteria. The U.S. Department of Agriculture released a 326-page list of products ranging from corn salad to uncured bacon. These are only some of the products on the list, and it is vast. Head to the USDA list, which is linked in the CBS News article, for all of the products. And pause this video if you need to. 4 salads from 7-Eleven, the Fuchsia garlic chicken bowl from Aldi's, 8 salads from Amazon Kitchen, 6 chicken dishes from Boston Market, 3 salads from Giant Eagle, 14 salads and prepared meals with chicken from Kroger, 30 salads and prepared meals with chicken from Ready Meals, chicken Alfredo from Rayo's.
You get the idea. It can be anywhere. I know a lot of people love to shop at Aldi's and Amazon. Who doesn't shop from Amazon? Amazon's Kitchen. So make sure if you eat any of those things, be it corned beef hash, be it the uncured bacon, that you check it out because there's been a contamination with Listeria. And we've talked about that. If you go back on some of our lives, you can watch them on the replay. Listeria is really something. It's a tough little bacterium, and it can be found in soil. It can be found in root vegetables. It can be found in other vegetables like broccoli. And the tricky thing about Listeria is that it can survive very cold temperatures. So even in things that have been frozen, foods that have been frozen, the Listeria can sometimes live, which really makes it tricky because you think once you freeze something, then you're all set and you're protected, but you're not with Listeria. Listeria can cause all kinds of illnesses. If you're a very healthy person, then generally with the Listeria, you will end up living and being okay. But for pregnant women or people who are immunocompromised, Listeria is particularly dangerous because it can affect the unborn child, right? So a pregnant woman can pass it on to her fetus, and the fetus can become very ill or even become unalived while she's carrying the baby. And then, of course, if you're immunocompromised, if you're someone who's on chemotherapy, or if you're someone who has HIV that is not properly controlled, you're someone, or if you have an autoimmune disease. So it's very important for everyone, but specifically for pregnant women and immunocompromised people, go ahead, check with your local food department, look and see if any of the items in your home are on this list of the meat that's been recalled due to Listeria contamination. All right. So now your next dose. Okay, let me give you your next little weekly dose for what people have been talking about. And this is a myth versus fact. We got a couple of myths versus facts. Okay. And this is myth versus facts. It looks like I'm playing myself. All right. Myth versus fact. First of all, Shador, who was the first person in the chat?
First person in the chat today was Miss V.E. Hall. Good afternoon.
Hello, Miss V.E. Hall. Thank you for joining us. And did anyone put any ones in the chat for if they eat this meat?
So Mick, I believe it's his first time chiming in. Hi, Mick.
Hi, welcome, Mick. Yep. Make sure look in your refrigerator, check the pantry, make sure you don't have anything that's been recalled. Okay.
Miss Lisa.
Hi, Miss Lisa.
And Miss Maggie.
Hi, Miss Maggie. Yes. And spread the word also, please. In fact, yes, go ahead and share this live with folks who also eat meat. which is probably most people, to make sure they don't have anything that puts them at risk for listeria. All right. So now for the next weekly dose, myth versus fact. Can opioid withdrawal be life-threatening? All right. We actually had a comment from one of our viewers who saw a short that I posted about opioid withdrawal syndrome. Let's go ahead and play that comment, and then let's go ahead and give the answer on myth versus fact, Shador.
All right, absolutely. So this comment comes from Han, and it says the only way it could be life-threatening is if there's an underlying condition making it that way, but that is extremely rare. The way she stated it, though, made it seem like opioid withdrawal on its own is life-threatening, which is not true and misleading.
All right, Han. Oh my goodness. Well, Han, I thank you for being a viewer. I thank you for enjoying my content. And I am very happy that you put this comment on there, because you are mistaken. And I fear that there are probably other people who have your same misinformation. And so this gives me a chance to go ahead and disabuse you at this time and clear it up, because opioid withdrawal is definitely life-threatening. Okay, there's nothing misleading about that. Now, is actually losing your life from opioids, is it a very, very common process? No, thankfully, most people don't lose their lives. But the point is, you can lose your life if you're undergoing opioid withdrawal syndrome. And you'll recall, with all of this Diddy, the Diddy information in the news, it has been alleged that with the drugs that Diddy reportedly has used, including opioids, they were saying that he was undergoing opioid withdrawal. Again, that's alleged. It's been reported, but I don't have it confirmed by Diddy's people in his camp. But they're saying that he underwent withdrawal. And so let's share this video, Shador, where I actually go into some detail about opioid withdrawal syndrome and why it can be life-threatening. Has reportedly been going through with all symptoms since being incarcerated. I'm Dr. Frita, and here are 5 things. Opioids are medications or drugs that include fentanyl, Percocet, OxyContin, heroin, morphine. 2, opioid withdrawal syndrome can be life-threatening. It can start as early as 4 hours after the last use of an opioid, typically peaks at 48 to 72 hours after the last use. 3, symptoms may include dilated pupils, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fast heart rate, high body temperature, tearing eyes, runny nose, goosebumps. 4, treatment may include medications like methadone and anti-nausea and anti-diarrhea medicines. 5, if you suspect that you are going through opioid withdrawal, or if you just want to stop using opioids, consult your physician or an addiction specialist. Sean Diddy Combs has. Okay, so if you want to get more information, then I have right here as a YouTube short. I also have it as a reel on my Instagram where I talk about opioid withdrawal syndrome. And I'm specifically referencing P. Diddy and that he had allegedly, when he first was incarcerated. So here's the thing, and this is why opioid withdrawal can be life-threatening. When one stops taking an opioid, even as early as the first hour after stopping it, you can start having withdrawal symptoms, but certainly 48 hours to 72 hours, that's when these symptoms peak. One of the symptoms can be diarrhea and nausea. Now, imagine if you're having diarrhea and nausea and you're not in a position where you can get IV fluids, and you're not in a position where you're able to keep anything down, and you're sitting there and you're dehydrated going through withdrawal. That in and of itself can be life-threatening, right? People die from dehydration, and people actually can get kidney failure, pre-renal azotemia, which can lead to acute tubular necrosis. All of this can come from being dehydrated, which is one of the key symptoms in opioid withdrawal. So that in and of itself can be life-threatening. Another one of the symptoms that can occur if you are going through opioid withdrawal syndrome, you can get tachycardia or a fast heart rate. You can get hyperthermia, okay? You can get high body temperature. And if you have tachycardia, and if it gets to the point where you go into an abnormal heart rhythm, like a ventricular tachycardia or an atrial fibrillation, then yes, this abnormal heart rhythm can be life-threatening. There's nothing misleading about that. You can have an abnormal heart rhythm and actually go into cardiac arrest. Now, one thing that Han said is that if you have underlying conditions that can make it more likely, well, yes, of course. If you already have heart disease, then sure, it will be even more likely for you to have a fatal outcome from opioid withdrawal syndrome. If you're already a person who's dehydrated, or with malnutrition, then sure, it would be more likely. But even with someone who's at baseline, a baseline healthy person, it still is possible for you to pass away with an opioid withdrawal syndrome. Life-threatening is just that. I'm saying that if you stop doing the opioids and you go into this withdrawal syndrome and it's unchecked, you don't have any treatment, then it is potentially harmful to your life. So I don't want anyone who sees that comment, or for anyone who's doing opioids, if you have loved ones who are doing opioids, I don't want you to think that withdrawal is totally benign. It's something that you need to be aware of. You need to look out for. You need to consult your physician or seek an addiction specialist to make sure that you do well as you try to come off of the drugs. And if you are someone who's dealing with substance abuse, if you have an addiction issue, then you want to make sure you get help. And we have a hotline that we can put up for you. And certainly you can consult with your physician or an addiction specialist. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about another myth versus fact. And this is the question because someone put it on her social media that her 64-year-old mother is pregnant. I want you to put a 2 in the chat if you think that yes, a 64-year-old can get pregnant. And I want you to put a 3 in the chat if you think, nah, that's a myth. So 2 in the chat if you think it's a fact that a 64-year-old could get pregnant. Put a 3 if you think, nah. Okay, so 2 if yes. All right, Shador, let's play this myth versus fact, and I'll clear that up.
I can't believe my mom is pregnant at 64.
So how do you feel about being a mom again?
It's unbelievable.
I cannot believe it. Like, what are you thinking right now?
What am I going to do?
Like, you are literally pregnant. 8 weeks?
I am too old for that.
Oh my gosh. What if it's
What
twins?
Am I, do? I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to tell you. So I guess those little weekend visits turn into a 9-month pregnancy. So what are you going to do? That's a good question. What am I going to do? Because who's going to be keeping this baby?
Y'all is.
Who's going to watch the baby?
Y'all.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy, y'all.
Right on over to y'all house.
And then what you going to do?
I'm going to be gone.
Doing what? Working on another one?
All right. So she says her 64-year-old mama is pregnant. Shador, did anyone weigh in? Do we have any 2s for people who think, yeah, she could be pregnant? Or 3 for people who thinking, nah, this is a myth?
Yeah, so definitely some 2.
Who put a 2?
So Eileen.
Eileen. So you think it is possible for a 64-year-old to get pregnant? Okay.
Miss VE says yes.
Yes, it's possible. Okay. Well, this is gonna be interesting.
Tisha. Hi, Tisha.
Hi, Tisha. Also says yes, it's possible for a 64-year-old to get pregnant.
Yes, we have a 3 from Valerie Bella.
Ooh, Valerie, you're going against the grain. Valerie says that's some nonsense and that's a myth. That woman not pregnant. Okay.
Shaquille Oatmeal says you can definitely get pregnant at 64.
Ooh, how you know? Ooh, tell me how you know you can definitely get pregnant at 64. Oh, that's interesting. So more people are saying yes, a 64-year-old can get pregnant.
And then Blue Butterflies, Dr. Frita. Blue says there's also false pregnancy.
Interesting. False pregnancies. Okay. I love the nuance there. Y'all, please go ahead and hit that like button. It lets YouTube know that we're here, that we're giving evidence-based information, and that we're busting myths and we're giving facts. Okay. Myth versus reality. Can a 64-year-old get pregnant? And I don't actually personally know the person who was on that video, so I actually don't know if she is pregnant at all. But let's talk about 64. So by the time most women are 64 years old, they are either in menopause or certainly perimenopausal. And we know that to be in menopause, that means that there have been 12 months where you've had no menstruation, no period. And perimenopause is the time leading up to that time. It could be several years. You could be perimenopausal before you actually have menopause. Well, once you go into menopause, then it is not possible to get pregnant in the traditional sense of the word, right? Because you're no longer ovulating. Okay. So in the traditional sense of the word, you would not be able to get pregnant after menopause. Now, is this 64-year-old woman in menopause? I don't know. But if I were a betting person, I would say by 64, she's likely in menopause or at least perimenopause, very likely, in which case she would not be able to get pregnant. So there are cases of women, certainly ages 45 to 54. We have a lot of cases where women have gotten pregnant, and they've gotten pregnant in the traditional ways with their own eggs that they've ovulated, carried the babies in their own uterus. 45 to 54, even though that's advanced maternal age, we know there have been many pregnancies that way. An interesting story. So y'all know my mother is one of 16 children. Ooh, I wonder if she's watching. I better watch what I say. But my grandma, Mama Sil, and my granddaddy, Daddy Pete, had 16 children. Okay. And she was definitely in her 40s when she had her last baby. Not 64, but she was in her 40s. And then my grandma, Jetty Lee, my daddy's mother, now if he's watching, I don't even know what to tell you, but my grandma, Jetty Lee, had 5 children. And for her last child, she was told that she had a tumor. Okay. Her stomach was getting bigger and bigger, but she was in her 40s, 47, I believe. She was told she had a tumor. But then one day when she went to the doctor, and of course they're trying to see, what to do for her in her last days, that tumor started jumping and kicking. And that tumor, I'm here to tell you, is my Uncle Keith, Dr. Keith McCrae. So we certainly know, and we see very commonly women in their late 40s and even early 60s having babies, but we just don't see it very often with women who are 64. Is it a 100% impossibility? I won't say that, but I'll just say it's highly unlikely. But here's the rub. There are women who are in their 60s who are pregnant right now and who can carry babies and who can have babies, but generally that is with some type of assistance, okay, like with in vitro fertilization. In fact, Shador, if you could go ahead and put up an article of a 61-year-old lady who was pregnant. And this is a fact. This is a fact. Okay, you can see that title. Read that title for me, Shador, please.
So a 61-year-old woman gave birth to her grandchild. Here's what to know.
All right, so let me explain. So in this case, this was apparently a pretty healthy 61-year-old lady, and her son wanted to have a baby with his husband. So what she did was she used the egg from her daughter, her son's sister, and the sperm from her son's husband. And through in vitro fertilization, they fertilized an embryo, and it was implanted in her uterus, and she carried the child and gave birth to the child. So this 61-year-old gave birth to her grandchild. Whatever you think about this ethically, morally, politically, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the science of it. And so you see very clearly it is possible for a 61-year-old or a 64-year-old. I guess it was kind of a loaded question. It's possible for them to get pregnant, but typically speaking, not in the traditional sense, not with their own eggs, if they're menopausal, which chances are they're going to be menopausal. So, there are things, any person who actually, any person born a woman who has a healthy uterus, even if she doesn't have ovaries, even if she's been through menopause, technically could have a baby, because what would happen is the reproductive specialists give medications, they give hormones to help manipulate the situation, okay, just like they would for a surrogate, which essentially is what this 61-year-old woman was, a surrogate, to make sure that she's able to carry the baby. So even if she were menopausal, she apparently had a healthy uterus and she was able to carry her son's baby and give birth to her grandchild. Okay, so I guess the answer is the 2s were right, that yes, a 64-year-old can get pregnant, and the 3s were right, if in them saying no, that a 64-year-old woman is not likely to have a baby in the traditional way. So myth versus fact, that one was a little convoluted, but I did find it to be interesting. And hey, it's one of these medicine that's in the news. the hot health topics in the headlines. And so I'm giving you your weekly dose. If it's in the headlines, they might give you some information. We're going to talk about it. And so if you have any comments about that, or any opinions, we can hit on that towards the end in case, unless someone has a couple of right here. But we're going to move on to some of our main topics. And if you have any questions, answers, comments about what we've talked about, then go ahead and put it in the end. And remember, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. We are up to, here on the Dr. Frita YouTube channel, over 790,000 subscribers. And I appreciate that. I thank all of you for your support who come in here. We really work hard to give you evidence-based information, to give it to you in a way that's easy to understand, and to give you the sound bites that you can share with your loved ones to help them to live their healthiest, happiest lives. So yes, we're up to 790,000 subscribers. Please go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. And I have so much just evergreen content that's on my regular channel. I have that, and also on my other channels, my Instagram, my TikTok, my Facebook. I give you a little different taste on the different channels. But thank y'all for all of your support. All right.
Absolutely. Dr. Frita.
Yes.
Blue has a question regarding pregnancy and menopause and hormones. So she says, is it true that menopause hormone and pregnancy hormones are the same?
Well, for the menopause hormones, and by that, there is a specific hormone that's checked to see if you are going through menopause, and that's called FSH, or follicular stimulating hormone. And if it is very high, well above the range, then you are likely going through menopause, or you're at least perimenopausal. Okay. When they actually check to see if you are someone who is pregnant, then there is a different hormone that they check. So I guess the short answer is no, they're not the same. But here's something that is interesting, and someone kind of alluded to this, I believe, who put one of their answers, who was kind of talking about false pregnancies. So we saw that 64-year-old mother, right? And her belly looked like there could be a baby in it, but we know there's other things that can cause a large abdomen. One, you could just have adipose tissue, right? You can have fat in the belly, but also, here's the thing, if you have some type of a tumor, right? And this could be, if you have some type of a tumor, be it an ovarian tumor, a uterine tumor, you can have a tumor that's releasing a marker that is consistent with someone who's pregnant. So that could throw people off if that happens. And then someone talked about false pregnancy. You could actually have, something that's dividing within your womb, but it's not actually a viable pregnancy, not a fetus. And you can certainly get the quote unquote false pregnancy. And then there are other things. You can have ascites, where you get fluid in the peritoneum or fluid in the abdomen. And it can happen if you have liver disease. You can have an autoimmune hepatitis, or you can have fatty liver, or you can be someone who's had alcohol overuse. Okay, someone who has had a lot of alcohol and has led to cirrhosis. That can lead to ascites. They've called it beer belly. Or even some ovarian tumors, okay, or some uterine tumors can cause you to have ascites. Especially ovarian tumors can cause you to have that fluid in the abdomen. So in other words, there are things that can make you look like you have a gravid uterus, or like you have a pregnant belly, that really are not a pregnant belly at all. That's a good question. But yeah, FSH is what physicians will typically check if they want to see if you're in menopause or perimenopause. And if it's high, if it's very elevated, then you are likely in menopause or perimenopause. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Frita. Thank you for your question, Blue.
Yes, thank you for that question. All right, so let's move into our next topic. Let's talk about the hurricane. And y'all know, Shadora, y'all know I shared right here on this live that these hurricanes have affected so many people, and it is really very sad, all the people who have lost their actual lives, and also people who've lost their businesses, lost their properties. And I think what really is frustrating is when people are told to evacuate. Now, some people, it's just very difficult for them to evacuate, or they don't have the resources, or they're not really a mobile person. Maybe they're elderly, maybe they have some type of a disability, physical disability. And for them, the heart goes out to them. And the other people just don't quite think it's going to be serious. Like, I know I grew up in Florida, in St. Petersburg, Florida. Every 2 seconds, it seems like they were telling us to evacuate. And then you get back home and it's like, the house is fine. Everybody's fine. I could have stayed. So some people get desensitized. Not my family. We get out of there. My parents were up here, for Hurricane Milton. But for Hurricane Helene, which was that first one, where like my daughter who's in school in Florida, she had to evacuate. for that one, there's still some lasting damage going on, quite frankly. Hurricane Helene has actually caused some dialysis nightmares. It's caused dialysis fluid shortage. And, I'm a board certified nephrologist. I'm a kidney doctor. And this shortage actually hit home. So let's play this clip. And this was when I was actually on the news just this past week talking about Hurricane Helene on Atlanta News First. Let's roll that, please.
Close. The Atlanta-based CDC is now urging facilities to ration their supplies. Atlanta News First, Madeline Montgomery is live from a dialysis clinic on Ponce de Leon in Midtown. Madeline, there is a specific type of dialysis that's now in short supply. That's right. It's called peritoneal dialysis solution. It's the stuff that people who do at-home dialysis use. And doctors say that if this shortage continues soon, people who are able to do dialysis from the home are going to have to come to centers like this, and that could fill up beds fast. Over 500,000 Americans are on dialysis, according to the National Kidney Fund.
Dialysis is critically important. It acts as a substitute when the kidneys stop working.
And that treatment is time consuming. It can be done at a center like this one Dr. Frita Fisher is medical director of.
You must get it 3 times a week in order to get maximum kidney replacement therapy.
Or it can be done at home with something called peritoneal dialysis solution.
That's something that most patients do daily, and that's the dialysis that requires the special fluid that is now in shortage.
A shortage due to manufacturer Baxter International's North Cove facility flooding in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene.
For patients who do PD, they do it at home so that they can travel, they can create their own schedules, they have autonomy, they have a life where they can actually make their own schedule. If they have to change and come center dialysis within a much stricter schedule.
And centers don't necessarily have that space.
Every clinic has limited chairs, and we have limited staff, limited nurses. And so if everyone in PD were to have to come in center, then it would be very difficult.
For now, doctors are asking patients who come into the center to stay put, and they're staying in close contact with Baxter.
If people have loved ones who are on dialysis, just check on your patients, check on your family members, your loved ones.
Baxter also makes IV fluids. There's a shortage of those as well. Baxter's working with FEMA, with the CDC, with Homeland Security, trying to fix this issue. Reporting live in Midtown, I'm Madeline Montgomery.
Yeah, so it's something. We know that Hurricane Helene was, weeks and weeks and weeks ago, but even though those of us who weren't affected are moving on, we're living our lives, let's not forget about the people who are affected, including my patients, including dialysis patients. So as I was saying, that PD, peritoneal dialysis, that's that home dialysis. And for our patients who do that dialysis, they have more of a freedom, of flexibility. They do the dialysis at home. They set their own schedules. If they want to travel anywhere within the 48 touching states, all they do is call the company. They say, hey, send my fluid to Vegas. I'm going to Vegas for the weekend. Send my fluid to New York. And the machine, the dialysis machine for PD, is something that fits in the overhead of a airplane, or it also fits in the corner of a trunk of a car. Very easy to travel with, and they have that freedom. Well, we were told that we could only order 60% of what we need for our patients to have the life-saving home dialysis. That's already an issue. And then with the shortage, you never know when the supply will completely run out, because that center that was affected, that Baxter Center in North Carolina, is the largest manufacturer of peritoneal dialysis fluid in the country. Okay. They also, as Madeline Montgomery, with whom I had the conversation, it was great meeting her with Atlanta News First, but they also do IV fluids, and they're a huge producer of IV fluids. And so you have people who needed elective surgery, like kidney transplants, who had to have their surgeries postponed because they didn't have enough IV fluids. And so it really is a big deal to make sure, if you have any loved ones who are on dialysis, call them, check in on them, especially if they're on PD, the home dialysis. But that was us at the dialysis unit, where I'm the medical director with DCI. And DCI is a nonprofit dialysis unit. We're actually the largest nonprofit dialysis provider in the country. And so our mission really is patient care for all people, including in underserved communities, underrepresented communities. So I'm very proud to be a medical director for DCI. All right. So for this next story, this one is really sad, quite a tragic story with Liam Payne. Okay, so we know Liam Payne was a singer. He was a former member of One Direction, which was this British boy band that became wildly popular. Simon Cowell, and we know that he's notorious originally from American Idol. But for this show, he was able to find this talent. And then we have Harry Styles. He's one of the people who's in that band or was a member of One Direction before going solo. But Liam Payne, the one we're talking about today, actually lost his life this past week on Wednesday. He fell from the third-story balcony of his hotel in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and he was found unalive on the scene. Subsequently, they, found all kinds of drugs and alcohol in his system. And even just minutes before he passed away, the hotel staff, the hotel guests were complaining that he had very aggressive behavior. And, he had aggressive behavior. They were scared that he might hurt himself. And then the next thing you know, he fell from his third-story balcony in the hotel. I don't believe yet they've said for sure if it's something that was done on purpose or if it was an accident. And I don't know for sure as of yet. But I want you to put a 4 in the chat if you think that he jumped from the balcony on purpose. I know we don't know for sure. And put a 5 if you really think that it was an accident. And in the accident, I want to include that we do know that he had drugs and alcohol in his system. Okay, so a 4 if you think that he did it on purpose, if he jumped. A 5 if you think it was an accident. I guess in the end, either way, he's no longer with us. But for the portion of if he did it on purpose, that opens up another conversation about people who are dealing with major depression and wanting to take their own lives. And I will say that he was very open about his substance abuse. He had been in rehab and he had bouts with depression, with major depression. That's something he shared. And when they reviewed the cause of death, at least from the preliminary autopsy, they didn't see any signs of foul play. They saw no defensive wounds, like no struggle. And it's reported that no one was in the room with him when he actually fell from the 3rd floor. But yeah, put a 4 if you think that he actually jumped and took his life on purpose, or a 5 if you think it really could have been an accident with everything that was in his system. So let's watch this clip and let's see what you say after that.
Liam Payne's cause of death has been revealed. An early autopsy saying among stories from his hotel balcony on Wednesday in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it, Shador. I heard in the beginning and then it got choppy. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and just put the still clip. Yeah, let's put the still clip of the news article up. So I'll tell you. So Liam Payne, as I mentioned, 31 years old, and he was actually 14 years old when he first tried out for that show. I believe it was the X Factor. It was a Simon Cowell show. He tried out at age 14. He didn't make it then, but then when he tried out again, he made the band when he was a teenager, and that's when they put One Direction together with Harry Styles and some of these other popular young men. And they really had just like a whirlwind career. But different ones start to break off from the group and go solo. Harry Styles is the one who seems to have gotten the most fame. Okay, we've seen him singing at different award shows. He's kind of all over the place. And, that's not necessarily my, demographic of music, but even I know who Harry Styles is and who he's dated and all in his business. Liam Payne also had a solo career. But comparatively, it looks like his solo career was not quite as successful as perhaps some of the other young men in One Direction. We do know that he had a son, Bear, a 7-year-old. And we know that Liam Payne has been in rehab, where he actually had a very long stint, 100 days reportedly, I believe, in one of his rehab stints. And he talks about battling depression, battling anxiety, and he talks about polysubstance use and trying to get over that. And there was an interview that's been revealed where someone was asking him his greatest fear about being a father, because he was really excited to be a dad, apparently in these interviews. But someone asked his greatest fear about being a father. And he said, my greatest fear is that my son will end up like me. And that really tugged my heart. So now fast forward, we know that, this one hotel guest reported that he was being obnoxious, quote unquote, in the elevator. And she said he was kind of looking at her, kind of hoping she would recognize him. And he's like, yes, I am Liam, even though she said she really wasn't checking for him, but she knew who he was. And then he grabbed someone, and then he had cursed someone reportedly. But we do have the 911 calls from Buenos Aires where they said that he was being aggressive and that they wanted someone over there because they felt like he might hurt himself. And we also know that in his hotel room, a lot of the equipment was damaged. The TV was smashed. They've shown photos of that. And he had multiple drugs that were found, including clonazepam, alcohol, different substances. And, so minutes, this 911 call, like one of the latest ones, was just minutes before he ended up passing away. And he fell from that 3rd-story balcony onto the pool deck, and over 25 injuries, multiple head trauma, internal bleeding, all of those things. And, now he's no longer alive. And so fast forward, we do have from the autopsy report, at least the preliminary, some of the toxicology. And Shador, if you could read this headline, one of the latest headlines that came out.
Yes, absolutely. Liam Payne had multiple drugs, including crack and cocaine, in his system prior to death reported.
Yeah. So it looks like he really did have polysubstance abuse, and he had that aggressive behavior that was reported. And so I'm curious, did anyone weigh in the chat with the 4, if you think that he jumped on purpose, like he took his life intentionally, or 5, if you really think it could have been an accident? And I know we don't know, but this is just for discussion and for food for thought as we try to take this information and focus it on seeing how we can make our lives better and the lives of our loved ones better. Did anyone weigh in?
So mixed reviews. Shaquille placed a 5.
Okay, you think it was an accident. And that's curious, Shaquille, because we know now, this document, he had the drugs and alcohol in his system. So what if he was hallucinating? Or what if he was just kind of out of it? Or what if he was just kind of making poor decisions and just kind of sitting on the balcony and really, of altered consciousness, and then he just fell? That's a possibility. We'll never know. So you put a 5, you think it could have been an accident. Okay, who else?
TS also.
Hi, TS. Hey, TS. What TS put?
5, accident.
Accident. Okay, so we got a couple of 5s.
SM Sparky.
Hi.
4.
A 4. You think he did it on purpose? Yeah. In his history, the history does matter, that he did have, depression before, and reportedly some thoughts of hurting himself or taking his own life before, so did it happen now, or now that he has the son and, he's a father, did he really not want to do it on purpose? And had he not been self-medicating with the polypharmacy, would he not have done it? But you think he could have done it on purpose? And of course he could have, and we may never know. I know that we'll hear more speculation from a scientific perspective as the final autopsy report comes out.
Right.
Who else?
Yeah, Roni. Hi, Roni. Also
Hi, Roni. A 4. You think he did it on purpose? Okay. Now, I will say, Roni, one thing, at least in the preliminary report, was that based on the mechanism of injury, the medical examiner said that there were no signs of him trying to break his fall. Like something that happens if you try to reach out and break a fall, you might get a wrist fracture, right? The impact of trying to stop a fall. So there was not that. So that could lean toward him doing it on purpose. But the other thing is, if he completely lost consciousness and made a poor decision of sitting on there and then just lost consciousness and fell, he wouldn't have any type of a sign of trying to break the fall either. So that doesn't necessarily give us the whole answer. But I was just curious kind of what the thoughts were of my med heads here, because I know y'all always weigh in. Anyone else, Shador?
Yeah, R. Barnes, hello.
Hi, R. Barnes.
Barnes says, I'm not sure now that I'm learning about his history of depression.
Yeah. And I'm not sure either. I was just really curious. I always like to get your input. Look, Shador, they always give us some input, don't they, in this chat? Y'all never disappoint. And I appreciate y'all midheads for coming and joining us and participating. Yeah. But I will say, so that we take this as a learning tool, what has been consistent is that he had aggressive behavior. So I do want to talk about some of the substances, some of the drugs that can be associated with aggressive behavior. One, stimulants, right? So crack, cocaine, methamphetamines, those can be associated with aggressive behavior. They can cause a heightened euphoria, which can fuel violent behavior. They can also be associated with a paranoia. And we know that he had crack and cocaine in his system. So those can be associated with aggressive behavior. Another one, benzodiazepines, right? Like Valium, like clonazepam. Clonazepam was found in his room, also called Klonopin. Now, benzodiazepines are typically, like the Valium, you typically think of those as being kind of downers, right? Things that make you kind of chill out, relax, they're sedating, and that's true. But in some people, there can be a paradoxical reaction where you actually get very stimulated, hyperactive, and even aggressive behavior, especially when the benzodiazepines are mixed with alcohol. And we know the alcohol was found in the room, though I haven't seen it if it's in the final toxicology report or not. Some other things that can cause that type of behavior, if you are on a hallucinogen, okay, like a PCP or an LSD or mushrooms even, they can do what the name implies. They can cause you to hallucinate. They can cause you also to be in a position where you're feeling kind of aggressive or violent, depending on what the hallucination is. So you can have an audio hallucination where you're hearing things that aren't really there, or you can have visual hallucinations where you're seeing things that aren't there. And you can imagine if you're hallucinating and then you feel a little paranoia, you feel like things are attacking you, that can certainly lead to aggression, and that can be associated with some of these hallucinogens. Alcohol, y'all have been around people who've had too much to drink. Oh my goodness. Sometimes people who've had too much to drink, alcohol overuse, can be very combative, right? They can misread social cues where if you say boo to them, they can be like, who are you talking to? What you want? You want to go? They can get very aggressive and combative. So we know that alcohol can be associated, and we know that there was alcohol in his room. And then polypharmacy, okay? Polypharmacy, meaning if you have multiple different drugs, you're mixing uppers, downers, stimulants, MDMA, ketamine, okay, things like that, pink cocaine. Your body doesn't know which way is loose, okay, if you're doing all these different drugs. So the mixing of medications, the mixing of drugs, mixing them with alcohol, this can certainly be associated with aggressive behavior. And we know that he had this polypharmacy. Make sure that you check out my Instagram post, because I did, it actually, I think it's my most recent one still on my Instagram, and we'll put up my Instagram. If you check that out, dr.frita, I have a lot of times, different content on my Instagram than I have on my YouTube. And I go into details of 7 types of drugs that can be associated with aggressive behavior. So make sure you check that out and share it. Please share it with people you know, share it with people at work, share it with people who have teenagers, people who have college kids, share it with grown folks, because a lot of people, it seems like these drugs, and especially these synthetic drugs, they're becoming somewhat romanticized, and we see what's happening with that. People are having overdoses, or they're having aggressive behavior, which could possibly be causing poor decision making, and potentially could be what caused Liam Payne to fall from the 3rd floor balcony. If he did fall by accident due to the polypharmacy, that would, it's all tragic anyway, but just imagine if he were so out of it, or hallucinating, or maybe he thought that there was something there and there wasn't. You don't know when you start doing the polypharmacy. So talk to the kids about drugs. It's like more and more people who were cool, like Diddy, I guess he used to be cool. More and more people are doing drugs, and I guess it desensitizes people, but it's a very serious thing. So yeah. All right. So the last thing we will talk about, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Ladies, make sure you talk to your doctors about appropriate screening. Certainly, if you're 40, you definitely need to have already had that conversation to get your mammogram. But even if you're younger than 40, talk to your doctor about your risk, because certainly if you have a family member, like a first-degree relative who's had breast cancer, say you have a mother and she got diagnosed at the age of 40, well, it's typically recommended that you get your first mammogram 10 years prior to that. And men, remember, men can get breast cancer as well. 1 out of 100 cases of breast cancer is in a man. So men, make sure you look at your bodies, you examine your bodies, okay? And let's make sure we keep these death rates going down with breast cancer. So let's get into just a couple of stories before we close out, Shador. I want to first talk about Ananda Lewis and share her story, which I learned through Sarah Seidner from CNN, who's living with breast cancer right now, and Stephanie Elam, also at CNN. The 3 of them are besties, okay? They're best friends, and all of them have been diagnosed with breast cancer. So let's go ahead and play Ananda Lewis's story, and then I have a question for you after that.
All righty.
Ananda Lewis is living with breast cancer after finding a lump in her breast nearly 6 years ago. You'll know her from her time hosting BET's Teen Summit in the 90s and for being a VJ for MTV. She's also my best friend after we met at the start of our freshman year at Howard University.
You know, your bisons. No, you did it just for me because I hate the word bisons because it's not a word. And she needs an S for her gators. But
Also, one of my closest friends is Sarah Seidner, the fearless, truth-seeking journalist and CNN anchor who is more comfortable reporting from chaos than she is focusing on her own needs. We've been tight ever since she moved into the office next to mine in Los Angeles more than a decade ago. Last year, she too discovered something in her breast that turned out to be stage 3 breast cancer.
rewind. But Ananda has family members with breast cancer. Do you have family members with breast cancer?
No.
And
My mother didn't have it. My mother's mother, my mother's mother's mother, my father's mother didn't have it. Like, I don't know of breast cancer in my family.
Yeah.
And so the doctor, I said that, like, he goes, "Does it run in your family?" They asked you it on all the forms, you know, all the stuff. And I said, no. And he goes, I go, so how did I end up getting it if it's not in my family? He goes, about 95% of people with breast cancer.
My old
Okay. Yeah. But so if you watch that, which that you should be able to find it. We'll put a link, or if you go through YouTube and you Google Stephanie Elam, Sarah Seidner, Ananda Lewis conversation, then you'll be able to hear how the 3 of them, who happen to be very close friends, all have had the diagnosis. They took very different routes. And I'll go ahead and tell you about Ananda Lewis. And yes, I grew up watching Ananda Lewis with Teen Summit, BET. I was so excited. You had all of this information from the Black culture perspective, teenagers. And I liked her. You know, she's been a model. She's, you know, clearly a beautiful lady. She also is highly intelligent. She used to push back against misogyny, against sexism, even as a young teenager, a young girl in her 20s, when she had her own show, when she was a VJ. She always made it very clear that she had a brain. But what's really, you know, sad about Ananda Lewis's story is, yes, you know, the lump in her breast was found when she was at stage 3, where they were still offering her to do mastectomy. And she references where they suggest that she get a bilateral mastectomy, have both of her breasts removed, and of course, chemotherapy, radiation. But she opted not to do the treatment. And when I first heard it, I thought, maybe she just opted not to do the chemo or the radiation. She didn't want that poison in her body, which literally chemotherapy, yes, it does kill cancer cells, but it kills some healthy cells as well. That's just part of it. There are a lot of side effects. And so I thought that was the decision she made. But then as you continue to listen, you learn that she chose not to even have the tumor removed. So she chose to leave the cancer in her body. And she goes on to say that she did it because she feels like the body is very intelligent. She got rid of toxic people in her life. She got rid of toxic foods she was eating. And she just felt like that was a way to cure herself. Okay. And so I want you to put a 6 in the chat if you agree, or if you can understand why someone would opt not to remove a tumor from their body. Tell me if you agree or if you understand why someone would opt not to have a tumor removed. And then, you know, you can put comments if you can understand why they wouldn't do chemotherapy or radiation. Put a 7 if you do not understand. And if you had a tumor in your body and the doctor said to remove it, you would definitely remove it. A 6 if you understand why someone doesn't want cancer removed, even if the doctors recommend it. Put a 7 if you don't understand and you really would definitely get a tumor removed. A 6 if you do understand. Okay, so she didn't have the tumor removed. Okay, so let's jump back and compare her with her friends. So we have Sarah Seidner, whom I love. Okay, so she's in CNN. I remember her during the George Floyd, and her friend Stephanie Elam is right. Sarah is out in the mix. Okay, so all during George Floyd, she's out there. Anytime there are protests, anytime there's rioting, she walks her tall self right up in people's faces, and she'd be like, "Okay, let me ask you this." She's very sharp. Also in politics, I've watched her talk to like the undecided groups that they would have on CNN. She's very pointed, still with the warmth and the kindness. She's very good at what she does. But that's Sarah Seidner. So she just got diagnosed, and she actually has opted to have the surgery. So she had her tumor removed. She's gone through the chemotherapy, radiation. She's done all the classic medicine, the Western medicine, and that's Sarah Seidner. She also exercises, and she talks about health and using food as medicine. Same thing with Stephanie Elam, the one who was kind of leading the conversation. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had a bilateral mastectomy. She went with the traditional Western medicine. But Ananda Lewis is the one who did not go through with it. Okay. Has anyone put any 6s in the chat if they understand why she didn't, or 7 if they don't agree? Shador? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, a little bit of both. I'm a little bit lag over here. I apologize. So 6 and 7s.
Okay. Who put 6s that they actually, I'm gonna tell me the different 6s and 7s and who, especially if they have any kind of explanation. So the 6s can understand why she didn't want surgery. Who put 6?
So Sheree, hello.
Hi, Sheree. Any explanation?
Going through the process of fear and denial or faith.
Yeah, because she's a highly faithful person. And I know she's I guess multiracial. One of her parents is Black. One of her patients is Native American, and she's very spiritual. She's very one with the earth. She like quit traditional Hollywood, and she's in Carpenter. So you can understand, whether you agree or not. That's not what I'm necessarily saying, but you can understand why someone could opt not to. Okay, thank you for sharing that perspective. Okay, who else?
TS also places 6.
TS can understand. Okay.
TS, he says sometimes operating, in my opinion, might generate regrowth at faster rate. If they don't get it all, I would go the drug route.
Okay. All right. So she chose not to do, at least initially, no surgery, no drugs. And I will say that when you're dealing with specialists for breast cancer, if they stage it for a reason, and it's because they're able to literally see with all of our technology if they have a good likelihood of getting it removed. Okay, so in her case, it looks like they felt a good likelihood of being able to remove the tumor and remove some of the lymph nodes to which it may have spread. And then to make sure they get it all, they do the chemotherapy and the radiation. But you understand her hesitancy, kind of based on a little bit of mistrust of the science, it sounds like, which many people have. And look, the scientific community has earned a lot of mistrust and distrust with Tuskegee and a lot of things in our past, maternal mortality, systemic implicit bias. So I do get why a lot of people have distrust, but just hold that thought, TS. Okay, who else?
Yeah, KT also places 6. Hi, KT.
Hi, KT.
When it comes to a person's choice, even when we don't understand, respect it.
Okay, so you're saying you respect the choice. So yeah, my question is if you really understand why, and you're saying understand, not understand. You're not judging her, basically. You respect her choice. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I can agree with
then
that.
We have a few 7s.
Okay. We'll do a few 7s, and then it looks like we're going to have to go ahead and close out. But I'm going to share you with something about Ananda with you as we close. Let's see, who had the 7s where they don't understand? They would have had it removed. They would have had that cancer out of their bodies.
Miss Glenda.
Hi, Miss Glenda. She says cancer out. She's not okay.
Cancer out. Miss Linda also 7. Cancer out.
Okay.
And Miss Gail.
Cancer out. Get it out of my body. Okay. So I'll tell you, when I first became a physician, I would have 100% been a 7. I don't understand. I don't want to hear it. Go away from me with that. And even now, when it comes to my choice for my body, I would go with the Western medicine. I would get the tumor out of my body, and I would weigh the pros and cons on the different chemotherapy, radiation, and immunotherapies. Those, will be up for discussion because there are other choices. But as far as getting the tumor out of my body, I want it out. Okay, if you feel like you can remove it safely, I want it out because I know it can happen if it stays in. I do appreciate the 6s though, because that's what I love about y'all here who come into the chat, who participate, because I'm telling you, sometimes you even weigh on my heart and my mind, and you help me to see things from a different perspective. And so I can take that compassion in when I go and talk to my patients who sometimes make decisions when I want them just to do what I say do because I know and I want to. You make me step back when you give me a different perspective. So I appreciate everyone who came with the sixes and who gave explanation, because we actually do all have the right to make our own decisions. We do have autonomy, and whether we understand it or not, whether physicians understand it or not, we still must respect a person in their choice. And so I thank you all for that. Even though, yes, for me, it's 7 all the way as far as what I would do for my body. And this takes me back to a story. I'm gonna share the story real quickly and then we'll get out of here soon. So I'm thinking about a person who was a mother of the church when I grew up, and very intelligent person. And see, that's just the thing. When people make decisions that we don't understand, it has nothing to do with their intelligence. Ananda's very intelligent, clearly. But there is a lady, she walked around in church. I won't say her name, but I loved her. She was a mother of the church. She was an usher and just a kind person. And of course, the mothers of the church were white. And so she wore white. And it got to the point where she had kind of like this reddish, yellowish, brownish kind of stain that started to be on her dress, right? Her usher dress. And even a bit of an odor, some reported that they would smell an odor. And what was happening is that she actually had developed breast cancer. And the breast cancer was literally eroding through her skin. And she was in such a denial about it that even though this very hygienic, very intelligent, very warm, kind, God-fearing woman just didn't do anything, at least not scientifically, about it. And she ended up passing, of course, with the breast cancer. And that really threw me off as a child. I was like, why you don't just listen to the doctor? But then, as you know, I think Sheree might have said, the power of denial, or maybe even just a steadfast faith that I don't need to listen to these doctors because I'm going to be healed. But regardless of the reason, I definitely agree with our med head who said, understand it or not, we have to respect people. So that takes us back to Ananda. She chose not to do the surgery. She chose not to do the traditional Western medicine. And what she did share now, and I do want all of y'all to go and watch the full episode of that conversation. Ananda Lewis now has stage 4 breast cancer. Okay. What started off as stage 3, which we believe would have been treatable, has now spread to the rest of her body. She has metastatic cancer, stage 4 cancer. So, certainly, wishing her the best, praying for her. Statistically speaking, I'm not talking about miracles. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about, the things that we do not know and we do not understand. I'm just talking about medically, statistically speaking, then her prognosis is very poor. Just from a scientific standpoint, understand that I'm not downing anyone's faith. I have faith, but this is the decision that she made. And what I really do appreciate about her is that she shared, because she never had to tell us that she had metastatic cancer, right? She never had to tell us about her treatment choices, but it looks like she's using her voice. And at least if we have all the information, her friends who've done traditional treatment, herself who chose, a lack of traditional treatment, we can take this information, and at very least, we can be more aware. And this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I do recommend that you consult with your physicians. I recommend, and of course, I'm coming from a physician standpoint, this is my point of view, I recommend that you get your appropriate, age-appropriate screening, and that you do all of the things in life as far as your health. And again, I'm a big Ananda Lewis fan. I'm absolutely wishing her the best. And I will always respect her. I will always wish her the best. I also, on this channel, want to arm you all with all the knowledge so you can make the decisions that are best in your lives. Okay. So with that, we are going to have to run. Ooh, I will say this, just in case there's 1 or 2 questions. I know we're running over, Shador. I will slip in 1 or 2 questions. But for those of you who want to have a longer time with me on Q&As, make sure that you join our YouTube membership. We have a membership community. For the membership community, you will have monthly members only Q&As with me, where for the entire time, all I'll do is go back and forth with you. I'll answer your questions off the club. We have our own live personal Q&As. That's for members only. You also have members only content. If you go ahead and join right now, join today, you'll see I already have many videos that I've put on there, where these videos won't go anywhere but to the members. These are members only video where I give you more content, more medical content. And you also get first look at the videos that I do ultimate release to other people. You'll get the first look. But yeah, for those members only videos, no one sees those but you. And I give you some pretty good content, if I must say so myself. medical content about my thoughts about my life. But there's always a teaching point in it. And then we have other little fun VIP perks. We have custom emojis, loyalty badges. So, if you don't join the membership, don't worry. I'm still going to give you the same evidence-based information that you love and that our over 790,000 subscribers love. Oh, I appreciate y'all. Don't worry, you'll keep getting your information. But if you want some of those VIP perks, you want a little bit of extra sauce, a little more icing on the cake, click the link in the description and join us in the membership community for Members Live. I promise y'all, we're having a good time over here. All right. Shadori, any quick question before we run out of here?
Yes. T Chosen. This comes from T Chosen.
Hi, T Chosen.
About
is it T Chosen one?
T Chosen one. Mm-hmm.
Like the chosen one. T Chosen one. That's cute. Okay.
In regards to chemotherapy and radiation, is chemo given as treatment before radiation?
Okay, so let me tell you, it varies. In some cases, you might have your doctor say, remove the tumor first and then do chemotherapy and then do radiation. In other cases, radiation might be given first to shrink the tumor, or chemotherapy might be given first to shrink the tumor, and then they do the surgery. And so it all varies depending on your tumor, the size, the level of aggressiveness, and what possible side effects you may have, with the effectiveness. So I say that to say it varies. It varies. It's a good question.
Very good question. And Zaphanis, I'm going to address one of your questions. Hello. Zaphanis says, my platelets are low, which has caused me to bruise easily. The bruising doesn't go away. What can I do to assist buildup of my count? And I'm taking papaya leaf extract pills.
Okay. All right. So thank you for sharing. Remember, what I share here is information. It does not replace the advice that you get by your physician. So my first recommendation would be to consult your physician, not only your primary physician, but also consult a hematologist. Okay. A hematologist, which is a blood specialist, because you need to know why your platelet count is low. Okay. You need to understand why the platelet count is low. So your platelets are those blood cells that are responsible for stopping you from bleeding. So anytime you get a bit of a cut and you look and you watch, the cut might be bleeding and then it stops bleeding. That's because those platelets, those tiny platelets go there and they cause a blood clot, right? Or if somebody doggone pops you in the thigh or punches you, okay, just say no to violence, and you end up with a bruise. Well, the reason the bruise doesn't get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and take over your whole thigh is because of different clotting factors. And then also your platelets, they go to the rescue, okay, and they stop the bleeding. They help to stop the bleeding. Well, if you have very low platelets, okay, typically normal amounts of platelets are about 150 to 350,000. And for those of you who have your lab work, if you go to my chart right now and you go to the CBC, complete blood count, you'll see white blood cells, hemoglobin, hematocrit, and you'll see platelets. And you'll know if you have normal platelets. If your platelets are low, then you will have likely easy bruising as you're describing, or you might brush your teeth and your gums might bleed, and you might get little dots or petechiae or little pinpoint little blood spots in your eye. If you have low platelets, you might bump up against something and just really get easy bruising. You don't know why. Or certainly if you get into an accident or if you have a surgery, you might bleed and not heal well if you not clot well if you have low platelets. Well, see, there are different things that can cause it. One, you want to make sure you don't have any kind of a blood disorder. Certainly you want to make sure you don't have any type of a leukemia or a blood malignancy. I'm not speaking that on your life. However, I do want you to be sure. You also want to make sure you're not taking any kind of a medication that can cause you either to have low platelets or cause the platelets you have not to stick together properly. You could also have an autoimmune disease where your body's antibodies are attacking your platelets, and that's why they're low. And if that's the case, you don't just want to put a Band-Aid on the problem, you want to fix the underlying problem. So my best recommendation to you is to talk to your doctor about referring you to a hematologist, a blood specialist, to find out why the platelets are low so you can get to the bottom of the problem. I wish you the best, and I appreciate you for your question.
All right, thank you for the question. And Dr. Frita, this is not a question, a comment, and one of your members only, Ms. Glenda, did a plug for you.
Hey, Ms. Glenda. Hey, my member.
So the comment comes from KT. It says, Dr. Frita, I wish you were located in Tennessee. I'm going to consult a nephrologist, and you've educated me on questions to ask going to my PCP. Ms. Glenda, So thank you for your comment, KT.
Thank you. And also, and make sure that you go to this YouTube channel right here, Dr. Frita. And if you go to my playlist and you look up kidneys or kidney disease, I give you so much information so that you, yes, arm yourself with the education to make your visit really count. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you for your support.
And your plug.
What did I remember saying?
Ms. Glenda gave you a plug. Dr. Frita has a consulting service online, 1 hour one-on-one with you.
You said a word, Miss Glenda. See, that's why I love my med heads. Yes, if anyone, no matter where you are in the country, no matter where you are in the world, I do offer a telehealth concierge service where, I enjoy doing these lives and all these group public, learning expeditions. But if you want to have just a one-on-one conversation with me where I get your full history and I give you my information based on what you share. Okay, I can give you a second opinion, or I can just give you a first opinion based on whatever you're going through. I'll get your labs, I'll give you information, and you'll have my undivided attention in this telehealth service. Click the link in the description. We've been having great success with this service. Wherever you are in the world, you can have a telehealth consult with me. And yeah, I would love to meet you.
Absolutely. And quick shout out to Ms. Gail Johnson, new member.
Yay! Thank you. Welcome. Listen, I think I'm going to put it up today. I just did another members only content. Ooh, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, it was right after clinic. Y'all, I give all my raw feelings, raw emotion, and education right after clinic. Plus, I have some other members only video when I was on vacation in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I was on the beach. I ain't gonna lie, I was having a good time, but I was also giving you information, including about GHB, that date drug, okay, that they are alleging that P. Diddy was giving to people. I give you details about GHB, what it was originally used for, as far as a medication and some potential benefits versus what it does to people, men and women. Okay, sorry, y'all. That's a members only video. Check it out. I'm really proud of that video. But I appreciate you for joining. We're going to have a good time, and stay tuned because I'll tell you when our next members only live Q&A is. So we're going to have to wrap up this Q&A, but for the members, when we have it for the entire time, all we're going to do is go back and forth, and I will answer your questions live. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all. Make sure you go ahead and like this video and share it as you slide on out the door. And for everyone who's here watching the replay, I appreciate you. Please go ahead and like this and share it, because we're here giving evidence-based information. And make sure that you subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. We take pride in giving you evidence-based information in a way that's easy to understand, and we give it to you in bites that you're able to share. Okay, look out for my next video. I have one coming out just in a couple of days. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so you'll be among the first to know when we release new videos. That does it for today's Medical Monday, where we address the hot health topics in the headlines. And we will see you next Monday. Thank you, Shador.
You're welcome.